Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Creepy Mysteries. I'm super excited to start this journey as a new creator, and I really appreciate you being here. A huge thank you to everyone who has already supported me. It means the world. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help this channel grow. Your support and feedback keep me motivated, so drop a comment below and let me know what you think or what you'd like to see next. I don't talk about this night often, but when I do, I always get the same reaction. People say I must have been dreaming, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And to this day, I refuse to go into that basement alone. It happened in the fall of 2017. I was staying at my parents' house in upstate New York for a few weeks while my apartment was being fumigated. They lived in an old house built sometime in the 1940s, and it had that distinct, musty smell that old houses tend to have. The place had always made me uneasy, but I chalked it up to nostalgia. Being back in your childhood home can make things feel different, even eerie. My parents had gone on a weekend trip to visit my aunt in Vermont, so I was home alone. I didn't mind at first. The house was in a quiet, wooded neighborhood, far from any real noise. The first night was uneventful. I watched TV in the living room, had a couple of beers, and went to bed around midnight. But the second night, that was different. I was in my old bedroom, lying in bed and scrolling through my phone when I heard a sound from downstairs. A dull, distant thud. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct enough to make me freeze. I muted my phone and listened, holding my breath. Nothing. Maybe the house settling. A few minutes later, I heard it again. This time it sounded like it came from the basement. Now, our basement had always creeped me out. It was one of those unfinished basements with concrete floors and exposed wooden beams in the ceiling, the kind where the light bulbs hang from a single cord and barely illuminate anything. It was mostly used for storage, old furniture, holiday decorations, a workbench my dad never used. The only time I ever went down there was to do laundry, and even then, I always rushed up the stairs afterward, feeling like something was right behind me. I told myself it was probably just the furnace, or maybe something shifting in storage. But then I heard a different sound. It was subtle, a faint, rhythmic tapping, not like pipes clanking or something falling over. This was deliberate, like someone tapping their fingers on a wooden surface. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. I didn't want to investigate, but I also didn't want to ignore it. If there was someone down there, I needed to know. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept in my closet and slowly made my way downstairs. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the fridge. I reached the basement door and stood there for a moment, hand on the doorknob, trying to steady my breathing. Then I heard it again, that soft, deliberate tapping. I turned the knob and pulled the door open. The wooden stairs creaked under my weight as I descended. The air down there was damp and stale, and the dim light from the single bulb cast long, distorted shadows. I scanned the room, bat clenched in my hands. Everything looked normal. Boxes stacked against the wall, old furniture covered in dust. Then my eyes landed on something that made my stomach drop. The door to the storage room in the back was open. That door was always shut, always. I swallowed hard and took a cautious step forward. The tapping had stopped. The only sound was my own breathing, which suddenly felt too loud. I reached for the pull chain of another light bulb and gave it a sharp tug. The storage room flickered into view, shelves lined with old junk, a rusted filing cabinet, a few boxes stacked in the corner. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then I saw the footprints, faint but unmistakable. Dark smudges on the dusty concrete floor. They led from the storage room to the stairs, to where I was standing. I don't know how long I stood there staring at those footprints, my mind racing to rationalize what I was seeing. Had I stepped in something earlier and tracked it in? Number, I hadn't been in the basement all day. Then, from somewhere in the darkness behind me, I heard a whisper, a breathy, almost inhuman whisper. A single word, leave. I ran. I bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut behind me and locking it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone as I called my best friend, Jake. He picked up after a few rings, groggy and confused. "Dude, it's almost 2 a.m., he muttered. "Jake, I need you to come over," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause. "What's going on?" I hesitated. What was I supposed to say? That I heard a whisper in my basement? That there were footprints leading toward me? It sounded insane. "I think someone's in the house," I finally said. That got his attention. "I'm on my way." I sat in the living room, bat in hand, eyes locked on the basement door. Every creak of the house made my skin crawl. 15 minutes later, Jake arrived. I must have looked like a wreck because his expression immediately changed when he saw me. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, half joking. I didn't laugh. I just pointed to the basement. "I heard something down there." Jake wasn't the type to get scared easily. He grabbed a flashlight from his car, and together we went back down. The footprints were still there, but something was different. The storage room door was closed again. Jake saw my face and frowned. "Are you sure it was open before?" I nodded. He took a deep breath, then stepped forward and pulled it open. The room was empty. Nothing but dust and old storage boxes. No sign of anyone. But then Jake pointed at something. "Dude, look at this." I followed his gaze to the far corner of the room. The boxes had been moved. Not a lot, just enough to reveal something behind them. A small rectangular hole in the wall. A crawl space. It was barely big enough for someone to fit through. But the real horror wasn't the hole itself. It was the fact that there were fresh handprints on the edges, like someone had been pulling themselves in or out. Jake backed away slowly. I think we should call the cops." We didn't sleep that night. When the police arrived, they searched the crawl space but found nothing. Just a few old tools and scraps of wood. They told us the footprints could have been ours, disturbed dust or something. But I knew better. That basement had always felt wrong. And after that night, I refused to go down there alone. My parents thought I was overreacting, but they couldn't explain the footprints or the whisper. A few months later, my dad sealed off the crawl space, covering it with cement. I don't know what was in there. I don't want to know. All I know is that something was watching me that night, and it wanted me to leave. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I was just a tattoo artist trying to make a name for myself. I had a small shop, barely scraping by, drowning in bills. I needed something, anything, to set me apart from the competition. Something unique, something powerful. And then I found the book. It was in the basement of my new shop. I had only been open for a month when I decided to clear out the clutter down there. Old furniture, broken mirrors, boxes filled with useless junk. But in the farthest corner, buried beneath a pile of rotting fabric, I found it. The cover was unlike anything I had ever seen. At first, I thought it was just old leather, cracked and yellowed with age. But when I ran my fingers over it, I realized it felt like skin. Human skin. I almost dropped it right then, but something stopped me. Something about the way the light caught the lettering on the cover. The title was written in deep black ink that never seemed to reflect light, no matter which way I turned it. It was in a language I couldn't understand, but as I flipped through the pages, something inside me stirred. The illustrations were intricate, disturbingly realistic. They depicted tattoos coming to life, not just as art, but as flesh, bone, and muscle. One image showed a man with wings inked on his back. The next showed those wings bursting through his skin. Another showed a woman with a snake tattoo curling around her arm. And the next image, the snake was real, its fangs sinking into her neck. At first, I told myself it was just some kind of bizarre historical tattoo guide. But deep down, I knew better. This was something else. Something old. Something powerful. I should have left it there. Should have burned it. Instead, I brought it upstairs. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept flipping through the pages, running my fingers over the strange ink. My skin tingled where I touched it. There were instructions, rituals, for making ink infused with something the book called living essence. It required a few strange ingredients: ashes from burned hair, a drop of fresh blood, and something called the binding mark. I didn't know what that was, but I was curious. Too curious. The next day, my first client came in. some guy wanting a wolf tattoo on his arm. I decided to test it out. I followed the book's instructions as best I could, mixing the ink with a single drop of my own blood. I told myself it was just for fun, just a superstition. But when I finished the tattoo, something was different. The ink moved, not like normal tattoos where the skin shifts with the muscle. This was something else. It looked like the wolf was breathing. The guy noticed too. He stared at his arm, running his fingers over the ink, his voice shaking. "It feels real," he said. I laughed it off, told him it was just fresh ink, that the skin was raised from the needle. But as he left, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just done something I wasn't supposed to. Things only got worse from there. Word spread fast. People started coming in, asking for tattoos with the special ink. They didn't know what it was, but they could feel it. Something about the designs felt alive. The shop that was once struggling suddenly had a wait list weeks long. I was making money, more than I ever had. But then my clients started changing. One guy came back a week after getting a dragon tattoo on his chest. He looked sick, pale, sweating through his shirt. He lifted it to show me, and I nearly threw up. The tattoo had grown. The ink had spread, curling across his ribs, his stomach, his throat. The dragon's eyes moved, following me, its mouth twitching as if trying to speak. "I can feel it," he whispered. "It moves when I sleep." I told him I didn't know what was happening, that maybe he needed to see a doctor. But as he turned to leave, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The edges of the tattoo were sinking into his skin. Like it wasn't just ink anymore, like it was becoming a part of him. I tried to stop, I really did. But the book, it wouldn't let me. Every time I tried to put it away, I'd find it open on my work table. Flip to a new page, new designs, new instructions. And then one night, I woke up to find something moving under my own skin. I rushed to the mirror, pulling up my sleeve. I had never tattooed myself before, but there it was, a swirling black symbol on my forearm, one I had never seen before. The ink pulsed, twisting like veins beneath the surface. I grabbed a knife, tried to cut it out. But the moment the blade touched my skin, I felt something clawing back. The pain was unbearable. I blacked out. When I woke up, the book was open beside me. My hands were covered in ink, and my skin was gone. Not all of it, just a small patch on my arm. But it wasn't raw flesh underneath. It was paper, the same pale yellow texture as the pages of the book. I don't know how long I sat there, staring, unable to breathe. A scraping sound, like nails dragging lightly across wood. My blood ran cold. It was coming from the kitchen, from the basement door. I sat up slowly, barely breathing. The scraping stopped. Silence. Then, click. The sound of the basement doorknob turning. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. My hands were shaking as I crept toward the hallway. I couldn't see the kitchen from my bedroom. The angle was wrong, but I could see the faint outline of the doorway. I stopped just before stepping out. And then, I saw it. A shadow, tall, motionless, standing in the kitchen. It wasn't moving. It wasn't making a sound, but I could feel it watching me. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in place, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Then slowly, the shadow shifted. It took a step toward me. I slammed my door shut and locked it, pressing my back against it, my mind racing. I still had my phone in my hand, and with trembling fingers, I dialed 911. The operator answered, but before I could speak, something happened that nearly stopped my heart. From just outside my bedroom door, tapping. I don't remember what I told the operator. I must have sounded hysterical. They said officers were on the way, to stay put, to keep the door locked. The tapping didn't stop. Slow, steady, just outside. Then, nothing. Silence. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. By the time they got there, the house was empty. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. Just an open basement door that I knew I had locked. They searched the basement, but they didn't find anything. The shelves, the old junk, the rusted metal box. It was all the same. But one thing was different: the drawing. It wasn't in the box anymore. It was lying in the middle of the basement floor, face down. I moved out a week later. I didn't care about breaking my lease. I didn't care about anything except getting the hell out of that house. I still don't know what was down there. I don't want to know. But sometimes late at night, I swear I still hear it. That sound.